Hello, Miles. Thank you so much for joining me for this awesome conversation about your new film, Dreamland. What brought you to creating a Dust Bowl era period piece like this film?
I I had never thought of making this kind of period piece. This sort of, I didn't really honestly know much about the Dust Bowl at all, and the way I kind of got linked into the project was through Margot, who had bought the rights to the script, which was a Blacklist script, and was looking for a director for it, and saw my first film and decided that I would be the right person to make it, which was obviously a profoundly surreal experience as the 23-year-old, going to LA for the first time, and her being the meeting saying like, hey, do you want to make a 30s Dust Bowl, like, sort of crime movie? And I was like, people are letting you make this kind of movie now? like what? This is amazing. And so, but really what was really fascinating to me is once I started really going in and doing research on the period, on what was sort of going on both environmentally and politically, and the way that was sort of, it felt like really fertile bedrock for a sort of really simple coming of age, love escape story. And for me that was exciting. It represented like everything I could possibly be scared of doing in my second movie, in a way. It was like, oh, whoa, okay, so you're about to throw yourself into a movie where you're the least, which, like, what my thought process was be, where, like, I have the least experience, it's Margot, people are going to be, protective of the process. The movie has narration, flashbacks, had all of these things that I was really terrified of, honestly, and felt like would be a really incredible challenge also to, like, go in with the best people possible, and attack that. And then I fell in love with movies from that period. You know, there's many. Bonnie and Clyde is actually not a movie that we watched again, because it felt like it's in the culture enough. It's in the, but Grapes of Wrath, movie that's dealing with the same period and is what breathtaking. It's amazing. And so, yeah, I kind of fell in love with that, and Margot was really, really open to letting me make the thing personal and making a few, tweaks and things like that. Yeah. I don't know what was your question?
Oh, no, that's exactly it. It was what brought you to making it and why you wanted to dive into something like this, which kind of, you kind of led into my next question pretty well. Is you went from working on a fairly small project with As You Are to a bigger film like Dreamland. What was the difference in directing that, other than your shot list was probably way more than you needed to? Like, oh, wow, our shooting schedule is insane. What was the difference
It's
between
funny.
going from one?
I only had 2 more days to shoot Dreamland than we had for As You
Oh,
Are.
wow.
Yeah, we shot it in 26 days. Uh, so it's funny. In a lot of ways, everything was very similar.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that was, I mean, when Margot talks about the movie, it's this tiny little movie, because she's used to Birds of Prey and all these things. To me, it was still felt, up until we got on set, much bigger. And then all of a sudden, all that matters is, what's in the the viewfinder, and you sort of just that part of it really dissociates. All of the struggles, everything you go through is exactly the same. This was a process that had a lot more producers and had a lot more sort of like people involved in it. My first film we made completely no one in Hollywood knew what was going on. No one could really say anything. You know what I mean? It was just this kind of, it was like a bunch of friends making a movie ultimately. So, so in a way there wasn't the same feeling of responsibility, whereas here it really did feel like I felt responsible in returning the sort of work and trust that was put into me. And Margot as a producer is, a perfect person to do that.
Yeah, she seems to be welcoming, inviting, and I would even be like, oh, you're making me feel normal and safe in this big world. So I'm glad she was like a big comfort blanket for you.
Totally. Oh my God, yeah. And I think that goes across the board to everybody in every department. For me, the set is my favorite place to be in the world.
Hmm.
Being on it, like my entire life, I've just chased that feeling of of working with all those people, and you really know the tone that somebody who's as famous as Margot is ultimately has a huge effect on the cast and on the crew. It, to a certain degree, the director is important in that, but if the main star, the person who's also producing it, um, isn't in love with it and in love with all the people and being completely open and vulnerable, then people's trust starts to break down. And that was the first thing about this movie that I knew, because I knew it was going to be a really fine line to walk. Making it was that it had to be made by a group of people who were all going to be totally vulnerable and open making it, and not apathetic, and not, you know what I mean, I don't know what the other word I'm looking for is, but it would really require this openness, and Margot led by example.
Well, it's wonderful to hear. I'm a big fan of her, so I'm glad to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
She's overall just an awesome person.
yeah.
Now, when you made this film a couple years ago, but for some reason it feels like 2020 was the perfect year to release this film because it feels more relevant now than ever. Do you feel the same way that it's only aged more, and our political crazy and everything's a little crazier now, and we're not in the Dust Bowl era, but it
Yeah,
feels like the
yeah,
Dust
yeah.
Bowl era.
Yeah. uh, well, it's crazy because, it just kept getting more relevant the further into the process we got, in a point where it was feeling, and it's a very, again, it's like a very simple sort of classic story at the center of it, about this boy and this relationship. But I think what was so exciting was that we could let that really simple story also carry everything that's going on, you know
Mhm.
what I mean, in the plays. And all of these feelings of isolation, of fear, of sort of like this otherworldly occurrence, everybody having to wear masks. Like, there were
Yeah.
just certain things that did start to really, you know, reveal themselves as more and more relevant, and not a way where we were like, this is great, in a way where we were like, oh no. You know? But that said, it also, it's a it's a movie that's really trying to balance on this line of memory and of romance and of reality also, I yeah.
No, I love that the film feels like a blank canvas in a lot of ways that you can put a lot of messages that you want on. And I think you did a great job as a filmmaker allowing us to do that. Now, to kind of wrap this up, you are a young filmmaker. I think one of the best younger ones working right now. I love seeing that you're here and slaying it. What keeps you inspired? What do you look at for other movies? What keeps you inspired to keep making fun, really different movies?
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, that it means a lot. I think that for me, it's not usually movies anymore. It's not movies that are coming out per se. That's like one of the bigger regrets I have about making movies, is that it really has changed my feelings about going to the movies, which is
Yeah.
all like ego shit, obviously, stuff. I don't know if I can swear on this.
Oh yeah, you can do
But
whatever.
if I'm in the process of making a movie, it's like I just can't go. But music, and also music a lot, conversations a lot, and also like the next film I'm working on is about my experience with anxiety and depression and things like that. So it's also like, um, for me, Dreamland was an unbelievable. Uh, it was like the best version of the most high level grad school I could ever do. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
working with geniuses who are at the top of their craft, and I was able to know that I had a script that was clear and simple enough that I could kind of explore and live in that. and that was what, for me, I try and look at everything as a what can I learn in this experience, and what can I sort of bring of myself and explore. And so for me, it's really just more of the process that keeps me sort of like inspired of trying to figure out my own, if it's my own stuff, you know what I mean, in story form, and try and get better at the craft. Or if it's also looking at something more as an assignment and saying, okay, how do I do this? You know what I mean? That most of my favorite directors are not writer directors as sort of I had planned to be or planned to continue to be. They're directors who were going out getting scripts that were sort of deemed a certain level by Hollywood, and then executing them, and then making some of the greatest films of all time, you know? So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, you do. I trust me, I went through film school. I had the same thing of like, I can't watch movies while I'm making a movie. That would interfere with my art. So I definitely understand that.
And annoying.
Well, yeah, but that's how our brains have to work for that, just to get it through.
Yeah, and it's not even like, oh, why it's like there's like a, oh, everyone's better than me. You know what I mean? Thing that is ultimately like, it's an industry that plays with your confidence and your ego in incredibly yo-yoing ways, and I find that if to stay sort of inspired and to stay motivated, you have to try and just go for the thing that you know, that makes you excited and makes you feel like this is progress, this is information, this is education. You know, I spend so much time on YouTube, honestly. What I do to like get inspired is I'll watch YouTube videos of screenwriters talking, of breakdowns, of fans talk. I like watching like YouTube channels like this of like movie fans talking about films much more than I like reading reviews or anything like that. You know what I mean? Because there's a certain humanity to it, and I think that there's a lot to be learned in it just on the internet. You know?
Well, absolutely. I think you are going to be one to yo-yo your ego in another direction. I think this is going to be a video I hope other filmmakers get to see that you are just a normal guy who wants to make fun movies. And I hope everyone gets to see this. Everyone, you have to see Dreamland. This is one of my favorite films of the year. It's just so interesting, so unique. All right, guys, make sure you check it out. Miles, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you so much, man.
Awesome.